It's great to be back in Vero in Indian River County. I tell you what, they had some of the fresh squeezed orange juice there, and that is not what you get in the supermarket from concentrate. That is the real McCoy, and so that was really good. I know we're going to end up having an unusually brisk weekend in terms of the weather. You are going to see some freezing. I know that's caused some challenges with folks here with the groves and things of that nature, so we wish everybody well with that. I think in southern Florida, you're going to see iguanas falling from the trees. I mean, a lot of them, because they can't handle. Once it gets even past 40, under 40, some of these places it's going to be, in the 20s and 30s, and so that's going to be, and then it will also potentially impact, and this is something we want, it will impact the Burmese pythons in the Florida Everglades. So you may see a python mortality event, which, we're working hard to get them, and we've removed a lot more, over the last year that had been done previously. We've done a lot since I've been governor, but we've stepped it up dramatically because it's really important. But, sometimes it's like, you can do what you want, and then, God will just take care of it for you maybe. So we'll see what happens with that. But we've got a lot of great people here. Florida Secretary of State Cord Bird is here, and he's got two different roles. One, he's kind of like the head of culture in Florida, interacts with other jurisdictions, but then also oversees elections. And since I've been governor, we did election integrity. We've had more prosecutions for voter fraud than you've ever had in a similar period of time. And it's not just voting for a candidate fraud. We have these constitutional amendments that these special interest groups will get petitions to qualify for ballot. And a lot of these petitions are fraudulent, and we're calling them out. And so we did a big reform that if your name and signature come on a petition, the supervisor has to send you a postcard saying, hey, we have a record you signed this, did you? And you know what? We have thousands of people getting those postcards saying, I never signed that doggone petition. Well, how the hell did that happen then? Fraud is how it happened. And so you've got big-time criminal investigations. You've got people that are going to be held accountable in just this election cycle for having done that. But, in some respects, the petition fraud is even worse than if you have fraud in like a candidate election, because the petition could lead to changing the Constitution. So like that's forever pretty much. And so it's really important. And so Cord has led the effort on that, is just done amazing. We have our CEO of Visit Florida, Brian Griffin, with us. And then we have two sheriffs from the Indian River County, Sheriff Flowers, and then Sheriff Del Toro from St. Lucie County. I want to thank them for the hard work they're doing. We're very proud to be a law and order state. I tell people that there was a segment like a year or two ago on CNN, of all places, where they had this gang that was stealing in New York. I think they were illegal aliens too, but they were stealing, and then they would get all this money from the theft. They'd sell however they would do it, and then they'd come and then they would spend it and live large in Florida as tourists. And then they'd go back to New York and they'd steal. And so the CNN person was like, well, why don't you just stay in Florida and steal there? And they say, because they put you in jail there when you steal. So. We also have, I know, Senator Mayfield. I didn't see Senator Garcia here. I didn't see her back there. But Senator Mayfield, we have Representative Miller. Trabolsi is not here. But I want to thank you guys for what you're doing. Then we got a lot of people from the city council here, Vero Beach. And so I want to really thank you for what you're doing on that. So 2026 is America 250. And we... We started last year on this, as this would be something that we were going to lean into as a state, and I was able to last year procure from Mount Vernon this beautiful statue of George Washington that we put in the Florida Capitol. So if you go into the Capitol, you want to go to the governor's office, you look, you got this amazing statue that Mount Vernon has lent us. And we're saying we want to do other things to be able to celebrate, partially because it's the right thing to do, but partially, we need more education in the public about the founding principles of this country. We need more education for young people, even though we've done a lot on civics and all those other things. So we're doing a variety of different things. One of the things, we have counties in Florida that are named after various members of the founding generation, and so I'm getting statues to bring to those counties for their namesake. So I have Franklin now in Franklin County. We did a Thomas Jefferson in Jefferson County. I've got Hamilton on the way for Hamilton County, Madison, Monroe. Blue states are taking down these statutes, so I can get them for a discount on the market. I'll bring them in Florida, no problem. I will do that. And so we're going to be putting those up, which is going to be really, really good. And I did say. When this guy was running for mayor of New York, he was very much opposed to the statue of Columbus that they have in Manhattan in Columbus Circle. And so I told all those retired NYPD, if he takes that down, bring it to Florida. I'll put it up in Florida. So we'll see. We could put it in St. Augustine. He didn't actually reach St. Augustine, but he led to be able to reach St. Augustine. So we may be able to do that as well. So we've done this, but we're also going to be doing things for people that have exemplified the kind of the spirit of 1776. So not just the founding generation, but others. So on, I think a week from today, we're going to be doing, we have a Ronald Reagan that we're bringing. We have others that we're bringing. So, it's good. And so we think it's important. Now, people will say, Florida was not one of the original 13 colonies, which is true, but we're kind of like dubbing ourselves the 14th colony because we think that there's a lot of interesting history about British and Spanish rule, then eventually United States, and then becoming a state in the 1840s. But we also think that, if you look at the spirit of 1776, if you look at those enduring principles that the founding fathers relied on, that's what's guiding us here in the free state of Florida. That's why we've been successful. That's why people are leaving these other states to come here. And I know, I'm not asking anyone to come because we got a lot of people. The reality is people don't want to stay in areas where they don't have good opportunity or aren't treated well. And people have wanted to come here, and so we have all these different metrics that will be able to show that, but we really believe that we in Florida really live up. Just think about civics education. When I became governor, I was like, we've got to rediscover this. And so we have middle school requirements. We now have beefed up high school requirements. They actually take an exam at the end of the school year. Honestly, they don't perform as badly as I thought they were going to. People said, they should have to do that in order to graduate. And I said, maybe someday. We got to work to get there. But it was, honestly, it's gotten better. And we have speech and debate again, our speech and debate initiative. So I think when I was governor, there was like a half a dozen districts that had robust speech and debate programs. Now, all 67 school districts have robust speech and debate programs, and we do a big championship in the spring. This year is going to be at New College in Sarasota, and the winner of the speech and debate is going to get a $50,000 scholarship. Number two, $25,000, and then the other semifinalists, 15, quarterfinalists, $10,000. And so that shows really that we value this. We've also done a Civic Seal of Excellence program for teachers because, the reality is if you look at academia now, if you really want to study the building blocks of Western civilization, what our founding fathers relied on in creating the republic, you don't necessarily have great options. The pickings are slim because they've got all the ideological studies that they're trying to do. Now we're reforming that in Florida. We had when New College, when we put in the trustees, they overhauled new president one of the first things they did, this was before no one would do this, they eliminated DEI first in the country, first college, and then they eliminated gender studies. And they eliminated some of these things which are not, I mean, it's trying to do an agenda. Not trying to focus on, kind of those core timeless subjects that are important. So, so if you're a teacher and you go, you probably don't get exposure to what you really need to understand the kind of the building blocks. And it's not really your fault. It just, that's the way higher ed has gone. Now, not in Florida. We go to the Hamilton Center, University of Florida. We've got options here, but that's relatively recent. So we have a program where they can do, and they get a $3,000 bonus for participating. They do 50 hours. It's, it doesn't have to, it's not like it's in the online, whatever. And some of the best scholars are talking about, how did Enlightenment thinking factor into the American Revolution? How did Christianity factor into the American Revolution? What about natural law? What about British common law? All these different things. So you come out of that really understanding the logic of what the Founding Fathers did, how those principles are reflected in our Constitution, and really, informing some of the debates that we have, now. You go back, there's nothing new under the sun. Yes, you see different technologies, different environment that we operate in, but in terms of the core understanding of where do our rights come from, what about human nature, proper role of God, none of that really changes. It's just you got to apply those principles to a new set of circumstances. Our Founding Fathers understood that very well. So we're arming the teachers with the ability to do that and to let the kids kind of have a full understanding of what this means. And the thing about it is we have students that will go, we have people that graduate not too far from here, high school, they'll go work for SpaceX at 18 years old. We've got people that go to community college and then they end up getting skills after 2 years and then they're doing well. Got people that go to four-year college and then end up doing, we've got people that go to graduate, medical, all these different things. So there's all these different paths, but no matter what path you take, you are going to be called upon to exercise the duties of being an American citizen. And what does that mean? And are you going to be able to do that in a way that's going to help preserve freedom for future generations? And I don't think you can do that if you're just a blank slate, if you don't have any type of direction for understanding. And so everything we've done is to try to provide that because we know it's really, really important. And so we have a website, America250fl.com. That's our official hub for all the different things that are going along. You can see about the 14th colony that we're talking about. We have an exhibit on that, which is really, really cool. But we're also able to make some announcements here today. So first, I want to be able to announce, so that, they have President's Day. And it's federal. Florida does not recognize it, but it was really, in the U.S. Code, is Washington's birthday. It's not for every president. I mean, we don't need a day off to honor Millard Fillmore or James Buchanan. You just don't. Like, it is what it is. Sometimes you get good, sometimes you get stinkers, and that's happened throughout American history. So you don't need to do that. So it's really Washington's birthday, and not that there haven't been other great presidents, but Washington really is in a class by himself as the founder of this country. And, we have separation of powers, checks and balances. I think we should have term limits for members of Congress, right? I mean, come on. And so all of that architecture and all of kind of our political culture is built around a truth that no individual in a republic is indispensable. That you serve, but it's ultimately a broader context here, except the one guy that was probably indispensable was Washington himself, because he obviously led the war effort against the British, which they were not favored to win. And when they were embarking on that, and they signed the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, or whenever they signed it, it was July 2nd, 4th, and then they kind of go, but it was put out to the world on that date. That wasn't something that they did flippantly. It wasn't something like now people just pop off on Instagram or something like that. Like when they signed their names, they were either going to succeed or they were all going to be put to death. That was basically the stakes. And so they understood that when they did it. So it was a really significant and monumental undertaking. And so he led through that, which was incredible enough. But then as the war was coming to an end and it was clear they were going to win, there was dissension in the ranks. You had a lot of military officers that weren't, because they weren't being paid really. I mean, you had Articles of Confederation, which wasn't working, and they were actually being treated very poorly. And so a bunch of these guys really wanted to have the military just take over, and that Washington would take over the country. That obviously would not have meant that we were a republic, and so they were kind of scheming to do this. And then it was in Newburgh, New York, and it's called the Newburgh Conspiracy. So Washington gets wind of this, and so he goes out and basically snuffs it out. He puts on glasses, which was kind of a big deal, and he said, "Forgive me, but I've not only grown gray, but blind in service to the country." And he started talking about the importance of a republic. And all these guys just wilted because they're like, this is the great man, and he's basically telling us we were wrong. There's no way we're going to be able to do that. But many others would have not done what Washington did. And then he also, after all that was done, victories at hand, everything's done, he simply retired his commission, surrendered his sword, and then went back to Mount Vernon. He could have taken over at that time too if he really wanted to. And then he came to help with the Constitutional Convention and presided over that. And then, of course, when the Constitution was ratified, he was elected president for our first president, and then, of course, reelected for that. And so, you may not have been able to get this thing off the ground were it not for him. So I think he really deserves a lot of credit. And it's kind of weird because his name's on a lot of things in America, but people don't really think about what he meant. It's just kind of like Washington, D.C., this Washington State, this, that. But he's not quoted the way like Lincoln would be, or even more modern people. But I think the character and the virtue that he showed to this day is second to none. And so I'm pleased to be able to say that we are going to this year for America's 250 recognize Washington's birthday, not just federally, but as a state holiday. So our state offices will be closed. Our state employees will be able to have the day off, which I know they're not going to complain about. And we're going to have a series of events that weekend that is going to help celebrate the birthday of George Washington. So first, we're partnering with NASCAR to sponsor the America 250 Florida Duel at Daytona. So it's going to be an exciting race to start a Speed Week to celebrate Florida's rich history. The race will involve drivers competing for their starting position in the 68th running of the Daytona 500. And then this will complement the Fresh from Florida 250 that happens that Friday, February 13th, sponsored by Agriculture Commissioner Wilton Simpson. In addition, that period of time, that 12 to 16 of February, all fees are waived for admission to state-owned public lands, including our public parks, state parks, wildlife management areas, water management lands, and Department of State historic properties. So you can enjoy that free of charge. We want people to be out there to be able to get that done. Another thing we're doing, because we're saying Florida's the 14th colony, is we've got something called the Florida Historic Golf Trail. Now, they didn't play golf in the colonies at that time, and it was a while before they started to. But we've got all these very historic places, and we're going to offer them for their 14th hole a special 14th colony flag that they could put in that hole. I don't know if John's Island Club will want to put that up, but like some of these others may want, and I think it's really, really nice. So we'll be able to do that, and we're happy to be able to offer that, and it's something that's really, really meaningful. And then finally, I'm pleased to announce that we are going to be, the state of Florida, through some of the foundations that are associated with the state, are going to be sponsoring an essay contest on America 250 for Florida students. So it'll allow applicants to enter for the chance to receive one of 14 Florida prepaid scholarships to help with their schooling in any of the state colleges or universities. And so there'll be further details on that that'll be forthcoming. You know, we have this thing, Florida Prepaid, where you can pay to basically get your kid, you know, free. It's effectively free by the time they get old enough, tuition at our state colleges and universities. But since I've been governor, we've not allowed them to raise tuition at all for Florida residents. And so we have by far the lowest in-state tuition of any state in the United States for our state universities. It's about $6,300 for tuition. We actually have pretty low out-of-state tuition. I think that may be the lowest or close. Honestly, I don't mind charging them more. I just want to make sure our Floridas are doing that. And you know, we also have possibilities for students to qualify for in-state based on their grandparents' residency, and we've been able to help people do that. And I know that's something that a lot of folks, you know, throughout Florida. But it's interesting with this prepaid, because we've held the line on tuition. They've gotten to the point twice during my tenure as governor where they had to send a bunch of refunds to the prepaid families because they overpaid, because they were paying thinking that tuition would go up, and if tuition went up like it is everywhere else, it'd be way more. So they're getting these checks back, and they've refunded like billions of dollars to prepaid families. I mean, it's been really, really incredible what's happened. But those prepaid scholarships, that is for state universities or for state colleges. And so it's a really, really good deal. And I think that this is going to be a great time for students to be able to compete and really think long and hard about America 250. And the final thing I'll just say before we bring up some of our other speakers is, you know, why does this matter? Well, it matters. It's just the right thing to do, and I think. But it matters even more because when they went out on this journey to launch this experiment 250 years ago, they did so knowing that they were bucking the tide of history. Republics that had been attempted had all failed. They were likely to fail. And so they said, you know, we're going to determine once and for all, can people govern themselves or not? Can you have a society where your rights come from God, not the government? Where you have rule of law, not the rule of men, all these different things. America was going to ultimately answer that question. And so, you know, they set out a lot of ideals in the Declaration of Independence. They later provided a framework for those ideals when they created the U.S. Constitution. But, you know, when Benjamin Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention, he was asked, did you give us a republic or a monarchy? And his answer was a republic if you can keep it. Because they understood you could have the best Constitution in the world, you could have the best Declaration of Independence in the world. These things don't run on autopilot. They require every generation of Americans to step up and defend freedom, particularly when it's threatened, sometimes even putting on a uniform and risking your life in service of this country. And so the experiment continues. The question that the founders sought to answer was not finally answered by the documents they produced or some of the things they did. That just gave a chance to be able to answer the question. So we're still answering the question about whether you can have a free government that can long endure. And, you know, in Florida, you know, we're showing, you know, that you can get things done, that you can do it the right way, that you can have low crime, that you can have low taxes, that you can have big surpluses. You know, we've paid down, just since I've been governor, the whole history of Florida. In my tenure, we've paid off 50% of that debt for all of Florida's history just since I've been governor. So you can do, you know, universal school choice. You can do all these things. I mean, heck, we're doing Everglades restoration, all the things we're doing, environment. People said you couldn't do any of that. We're doing it. So we're showing it can be done, but I think the debate is still raging. You see different philosophies that have been at play throughout the country, and you know, the ones that have not been good have all pursued a certain course that has not been good philosophically, and I think, you know, we really had that solid foundation that's rooted into what our founding fathers tried to establish 250 years ago. So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud Florida's leading the effort at the state level to celebrate America 250.